Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. We come to you on this Wednesday morning on the Mike Francesa channel, on the Bet Rivers Network, on YouTube, as we get ready for what will be a very big couple of days. Mets have their opener on Friday. We have the Final Four on Saturday, the championship game on Monday night, and then right into the Masters. So a lot going on right now. There's two words I just don't want to hear anymore. Anywhere, anytime. One is torpedo. I'm already sick of that. Two is tariffs. I mean, if I hear any more or read any more about tariffs, I just can't take it. Okay. And today's tariff day, if you know, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I'm not a fan of them. No one's a fan of what's going on Wall Street right now, but let's not get into that right now. But those are the two words I just don't want to hear anymore. Torpedo, which is just the last 4 or 5 days, and the other one is tariffs, which has been going on for like a month. All right, here we go. Let's start with the NFL, because the NFL comes in, has their meetings down in Florida, as always. The owners get together, have a couple of cocktails, have a little dinner, and have a little, get together, see what's going on. Coaches get together, take their team picture, the whole deal. Now, they come out with some rule changes. One that they didn't come out with, which I wanted, was the tush push. It sounded like, because we never got to a vote, sounded like there was enough, of a feeling in the room that it would pass, but they tabled it. So the tush push has been tabled. So it is gone for now. It stays in for this year. Whether that changes somewhere down the line, we'll have to wait and see. The other thing that got tabled was the Lions' idea of giving credence to record over division. And I told you at the time, I did not think that would happen. The NFL and many of the old line owners have always had a healthy respect for divisions and what divisions mean. They still are going to give credence to the division winner over the overall record. That's not going to change. The Lions tried to change a couple of things they didn't like from last year. One was their record, and two, they also introduced something that was never going to happen, and that was they wanted defensive penalties not to be first downs. But that is impossible, because if you make defensive holding, and is there a more crushing play than on 3rd and 32, where you get called for a 5-yard hold and it's an automatic first down? The reason why you have to have these defensive penalties be 5-yard penalties and automatic first downs, even on 5-yard penalties, is because of the fact that otherwise you would get deliberate use of the penalties way too often. Defensive penalties would rise enormously if they were not first downs. Oh, I'm beat, I'm pulling them down. Oh, I'm beat, I got him by the jersey. Oh, I'm beat. If it's just a 5-yard walk-off and it's not even a first down, you're going to get a million of them. They don't want that. So that's why defensive penalties will remain first downs, okay? Here's the ones they did change. Number one, and I've been an advocate of this. This is probably the overtime rule we're going to live with for a while. Regular season is 10 minutes. Postseason is sudden death. You play until somebody wins. They can't do that in the regular season because they worry about injuries, okay? Now, and quite equitably, both teams will now get to touch the football. This has had to happen. There's too many games where the team gets the ball, scores a touchdown, and walks off. Now, both teams will get a shot at the ball. After that, it's sudden death. Next one who scores wins. Now, listen, if you get the ball and you turn it over for a touchdown, game's over. You understand it? You had the ball already. It's just that you no longer will have the scenario, and we've seen it too many times, where you win the coin toss and score a touchdown and walk off the field. That will not happen anymore. not in the regular season. Already couldn't happen in the postseason. It now will not happen in the regular season either, except the difference is there is a 10-minute time period. So when you go possession, now you're in the third possession, there's usually only about 2 minutes left in the game. So that third possession, if both teams have had possessions, unless they're very quick 3 and outs, you don't have a lot of time left in the game at that point anyway. So you're headed for a tie. The following penalties can be reviewed. Hitting a defenseless player, grabbing the face mask. This is big. Horse collar, tripping, roughing or running into the kicker. All those now are reviewable. But understand this. If you see a scenario like happened in the Viking game, quarterback drops back to pass, he throws an interception or he throws an incompletion, he got his face mask ripped, no flag. This does not change that. They have not given New York or the eye in the sky the ability to correct a play that was not called. You cannot invent a penalty with review. You can pick up a flag. You can review a bad penalty, but you cannot say, hey, I want to review because I think there's a penalty on the play. No, they will not. That is not done. If there's no penalty called, it's not subject to review. So it is not going to add penalties. It's not going to correct. They don't have the power to correct that. Even though it's been suggested on the face mask, they should be allowed to correct that. They cannot throw a flag if there hasn't been one called. Now, first downs will now be done not by, they still will use the yard markers. I don't know why, probably just because they've been there forever. But it will be electrically or machine computer enhanced. It will be the computer. It will be the system that is in place that will decide first downs. There is a chip in the ball, and there are markers now on every 10-yard line. There will be one in every stadium. So it will connect when the marker is hit. They will know the marker was hit. So there will be no disputes about that anymore. It is all going to be done by machine. So that's over with. Okay. So that is something that is completely out of the debate stage. And we have had plenty of that because let's be honest, these guys are guessing on where they mark the ball. You can't see. There's no visible evidence to go by once you see everybody on top of each other and the ball is hidden and they come in and they mark it with their foot. They don't know where the hell they're marking it. Let's be honest. They didn't see where the ball is. They have no idea. They're giving it their best shot. Well, now it's not going to be that way anymore. It's going to be done by machine and it will be very accurate. The other thing was they want more kick returns. Now they want more kick returns. Okay. So now the idea is if you boot the ball out of the end zone now, it comes out to the 35. Their feeling is a lot of teams won't want the ball to come out to the 35. So you'll get a lot of balls in play that have to be returned. Last year, 33% of kickoffs were returned. They think the number will go up to 2/3. Let's see what happens. It will go up. I don't know if it'll go up to 2/3. All right. The eye in the sky or New York, whatever you want to call it, okay? The overwhelming reach of whoever is looking at the game elsewhere, not the officials on the field, will continue to play a bigger role. That is going to continue. There's no question. Now, they can pick up a flag, but they will not call flags. Understand? They will say, that's a bad flag, pick it up. But they will not say, you missed a terrible face mask, throw the flag. That will not happen. Will that happen eventually? I don't know, but it will not happen now. So I would have liked to see the tush push banned. I don't like it. It didn't get banned. The Lions didn't get any of their wishes about record or about certain penalties not being automatic first downs on defense. That didn't go anywhere. And you did get overtime fixed, I think, to the best that it can be fixed right now. All you wanted to do was make it so that the coin flip didn't decide everything. Too many of these games, you knew the coin flip. You know, you got two really good offensive teams. You got Kansas City and Buffalo. And, you know, if they win the coin flip, they're probably going to win the game. And it's happened too many times with Brady in New England or with Mahomes or whatever. And now at least you got a chance to respond. You get an equitable shot with the ball to force it to a sudden death situation where you've both touched the football. That quick win the flip, make a big play, good night the lights is over. That's not happening anymore. Even in the regular season, although remember the regular season is timed at 10 minutes. There had been an idea of making it 15 that was knocked off. They didn't like that. They thought 15 was too long. It's still 10 minutes. So that's where we are with the NFL right now. Nothing earth-shattering, nothing not to like. I think the changes there, for the most part, are positive. Now, we're days away, and we'll wait till Friday morning to spend a lot of time analyzing the two series. We are set up for a good Final Four. Doesn't mean we're going to get great games, but we are set up for a good Final Four. I don't consider it the historic Final Four that a lot of people are trying to paint it as because of the ratings of the four teams being so high. They're four good teams. Any one of the four teams can win it all. You can make a case for Florida. You can make a case for Auburn. You can make a case for Houston. And obviously, everybody can make a case for Duke. Right now, current odds with Bet Rivers. To win it all, Duke is minus 110. They're the favorites. Relatively heavy favorites. Florida's plus 270. So to win two games, Florida's plus 270. Houston's plus 400 to win two games. And they obviously get Duke first. And then Auburn is 450 to win two games. Florida is right now on the Bet Rivers board, 2.5-point favorite. Duke is 5-point favorites. I've seen it as high as 5.5. That's given Houston, which has had a great year, a bundle of points. Overwhelming negative for Houston. Duke's two-way efficiency and their size. Duke is big. They're bigger than Houston. They're bigger than everybody. Their length has bothered teams dramatically in the tournament. Can their length bother Houston? It can. Overwhelming negative for Duke. They are still, in real terms, run heart and soul by a freshman. You still remember that. Number two, they have not played a lot of close games this year. They have had very few games. The Carolina game without flag, one of the exceptions, where they blew a 21-point lead at half and actually could have lost the game in the final seconds. They have played two games that were relatively close in the last 20. Houston has played a million close games. Has only been beaten once in regulation. The other times was beaten in overtime. They are a very tough-minded, gritty, terrific defensive team. So is Duke. And Duke is bigger, and Duke is better offensively than they are. Duke deserves to be favored. Houston has a legitimate shot. It's a fascinating game. If you like college basketball, this is one you don't want to miss. It has a chance to be a classic. And then you have Florida and Auburn know each other very well. And both have a premier player that has to be dealt with. We'll get to that. We'll save that for Friday. But right now, Duke is the heavy favorite. They're 5-point favorites over Houston. And making Houston's a 5-point underdog is a big deal because Houston has not been underdog all year. And Florida is a 2.5-point favorite over Auburn, which was actually the number one seed coming into the tournament because of their regular season performance. And actually, I thought played its best basketball in the last game and a half. They pretty much had their way with Michigan State. And after they just stormed past Michigan, they pretty much had their way with Michigan State. Michigan State had a terrible game from the perimeter. Just awful. Oh, awful. One of their key guys was 0 for 10. I mean, they're just terrible. Not a baseball, and I am not going to spend any time on this bat. Okay, listen. All I will say on the subject is this. Let's have some patience and look at this. Now, people talking about everyone, rushing to get these bats. If you listen to the Yankees, there is no rushing to get these bats. That these bats were scientifically designed for each player based on where that player, over a lot of study, makes contact with the baseball most frequently based on their swing. This bat is specific to the player. It is not just pick up a bat and all of a sudden you're going to start hitting home runs. Now, that does mean the bats that are going out right now should not be that effective. And it also opens up the possibility that this bat could be very effective over a long period of time. We just don't know if that's the case. These guys have hit home runs with them. But again, remember, some of these home runs are typical Yankee Stadium home runs. They're 315-foot fly balls or 320-foot fly balls. It happens. Yes, the Yankees have set records over their first 4 games for home runs. And they've hit, other than Judge, they've hit a lot of dunkers. I mean, Rice hit one last night in the 9th inning off a lefty that wasn't a dunker, that's for sure. He likes the fastball. That's obvious. He's gotten stronger and he likes the fastball. We'll see. We'll see with the bat. That's all I will say right now. No one knows what they're talking about as far as how efficient or how effective it's going to be. We don't know. Now, what we've seen is some rather notable starts. The Dodgers are 7-0. The Padres, who I took as an under, are 6-0. The Braves, who I took as an over, are 0-6. Not exactly fast starts. I understand I got a couple going in the right direction, like the Giants, who are 4-1, and I took them as an over. But again, it means nothing. It's a long, long season. But you don't want to open 0-10 if you're the Braves. And you'd rather not see the Dodgers, open 10-0. But we know they're going to win anyway. They're going to win their division anyway. We know that. They're loaded. It's good to see Betts playing well because obviously he has gone through a lot in the last 30, 45 days. So it's nice to see him playing well. Jack, my son asked me, he says, where do you put Jokic in all-time players? Now, when you're dealing with all-time players, the game has changed so radically. I mean, you don't have to look past the fact that last night Curry took 23s himself. He scored 52 points, but he took 20 3-point shots himself. Show you how the game has changed. There's no question that no matter where you're going to stack up, and if you want to call Jokic a big man, okay, we'll call him he is a big man, but it's such a different game. To compare him to Chamberlain and Russell and Jabbar and Nate Thurmond, and it's such a different game. Even Bill Walton, although he does pass the ball the way Walton did. There's no question he has a basketball ability that is unique. And I mean, there's nothing he can't do. I mean, as you know, he's coming off a game last night. Now, I've seen two conflicting things as to whether it was 61-11-10 or 61-10-10, but either way, it doesn't matter. 61-10-10. He recently had a 30-20-20 game, which had never been done before, as you know. 30-20-20, which is the most unique game I've ever seen. I mean, 30-20-20 is one for the ages. He's a player, he's an all-time great. I don't think there's any question about that. Comparing the way he plays now to the game now to what, say, Wilt Chamberlain did is impossible. Or what Bill Russell did is so different. It's ridiculous. The sport has changed so radically, and you don't need to look more past the fact that last night Curry took 20 threes. I don't know how many this regular season and NBA, I don't pay that much. I watch it. I can't say I went to a Knicks game recently. It really doesn't matter very much, to be honest with you. He took 20. He was 12 for 20. The team took 56 threes. There were 103 shot in the game. So think about that. The adaptation of the three-point goal and what it was meant for when it was first put into utilization was going to be a home run shot. It was going to bring teams back late when they were trying to, erase the deficit. It was going to bring another close game into account where instead of, being able to tie the game with, when you're 2 points down or 1 point down, win the game, but you can now win the game at 2 and tie it at 3, which brings a whole bunch of games into effect. The game was over at 3, now it's over at 4. But the idea of somebody shooting 20 of them. So there were 2 games last night that give you pause. The Curry 52-10-8 and the Jokic 61-10-10. 61-10-10. Show you where this game is headed. But as far as Jokic as a player, I don't think there's any disputing. We're looking at an all-time great. Does he break the top 10? The question you have when you put somebody in the top 10 is, who do you take out? And if we start a top 10 debate, it never ends. See, I see top 10 now that don't have Oscar Robertson in it, and I say, hey, please. Like Harrison called me up a couple weeks ago, and he said, Dad, we're having an argument here. I got guys who say that Westbrook's better than Oscar Robertson, and I'm like, what? And I didn't want to act like, hey, you young fools. So all I said to them was, I said, what's stats going to? And we know that he, in very inefficient terms, got enormous statistical yields, Westbrook. I mean, he would miss 4,000 shots but still have a triple double. We know that. Um, and there was a lot of padding of his stats. We know that too. But I said, what am I going to use to just end the argument without looking like, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. You're young, blah, blah, blah. So the first one I went to was, I said, All NBA. How many times could Westbrook have made All NBA? I said. So the answer was 2. And then you go to Oscar. How many times did Oscar make All NBA? 10. First team All NBA. I'm talking about. I'm not talking about making second team or third team. First team All NBA. When you make 10, you're an all-time great. I mean, if you look, there's not that many players who have achieved 10 first team All NBA. It means you're in the first 5. They name 3 teams. You consider All NBA if you're in the 15, but the first 5, 10 times. That should end the argument. The fact that argument exists just shows you how forgotten players are. I mean, as they make the lists, they start to take Jerry West's and Oscar Robertson's and Larry Bird's off the list. I mean, so it gets a little silly, but when you try to slide a Jokic in and say he's a top 10 all-time player, if he is, who's out? But he is a rather unique talent. There's no question. There's no debating that in any way. Yankees finally lost last night, so I'm sorry if you thought they were going undefeated. I know some of you did. It looked like Leiter was going to get out of the inning. When he got the strikeout before Suarez came up, he got the strikeout, and it looked like he had finally, after losing some control, which he had, and with him, his most efficient pitch. These guys know. First of all, they know what speed. You know what speed that it's going to arrive at, but you also know that it doesn't wind up in the strike zone. So if you can have the ability to take it, it often is not a strike. That's just the way it is. You want to chase it. And sometimes it's, clearly unhittable. But when he got Naylor and he struck him out, and I didn't think he would get Naylor. I thought Naylor would get him. And he didn't. And he struck him out. And then when he got strike 2 on Suarez, I said, wow, he's going to get out of this inning. And then Suarez was sitting on the off-speed pitch, and he got one a little up, and he deposited for his 5th home run and a grand slammer. And, he has been an unsung hero. I mean, he has hit a ton of home runs in the last 5 years. He really has. Right now, he's got 5 homers and I think 11 RBIs. But he hits the grand slammer in the 8th inning, and the Yankees lose. They still hit 3 more home runs, which has become obviously a big issue as each day, they continue to be the first team to ever hit this many home runs in 4 games. And this team hit home runs in 5 games. And I'm sure it will continue for a while as Dominguez hit one and Volpe hit his 3rd. And then Rice really ripped one into the second deck and right in the 9th inning. He really hit it. But the Yankees fell last night. They'll be in action again tonight. Gallen against Rodon, and then Mets will be late this afternoon after losing last night. Holmes back on the hill against Gillespie as the Mets will play today, off tomorrow, and then have their home opener for all you Mets crazies on Friday, although the weather looks a little rainy, against Toronto. So they'll finally get the season open at home. They will do that. Yankees will go to Pittsburgh after they finish up with the Diamondbacks, who got a pretty good team. And away we go as the baseball season starts to move on. And we get everybody with a couple of games under their belt, and away we go. So the season there has been just overrun by the bat issue, and I guess that will continue for the next days and weeks to come. Um, on a sad note, the passing of Val Kilmer. You knew Val Kilmer was sick. The way they utilized him in Top Gun Maverick, bringing his illness into account in the movie and having him pass away in the movie. Um, that was the movie that was one of those movies like School Ties. If you've ever watched School Ties, you know how many guys who were future huge names were in that movie. I mean, you could click them off. There's like 7 or 8 of them. Same thing with Top Gun. Top Gun, if you click it off, there's so many people who became stars out of Top Gun. And they wanted to use Kilmer in Top Gun Maverick. They found a way to use him. He had already been ill. He passed away yesterday from pneumonia at 65. Way too young. Way too young. Hey, when you pass 70, which I am, and you hear about 65, it's way too young, as you know. 80 starts to sound young. You get a little different perspective. When I think of Kilmer, though, there are a couple of really good portrayals of Doc Holliday. But I particularly like his in obviously his movie with Tombstone. I particularly like his. And I know that when he goes off and Wyatt Earp's supposed to go meet Ringo, and Ringo is, as Wyatt Earp, is very, very brave depicted as being very brave, as you know, and maybe a little lucky at times, but very brave. And he's going to meet Ringo, who is just way too fast for him. Ringo is this, ultimate pistolero, but he could tell throughout that Ringo has always been a little afraid of Doc Holliday because Doc Holliday was known to be incredibly fast with the gun. And Doc is supposed to be on his deathbed with tuberculosis, and he gets out of bed and he goes, meets Ringo, and you get the classic, which I know has become, legend. Sometimes scenes or phrases, "I'm your Huckleberry" has become a classic phrase out of that movie about his gunfight where he kills Ringo in the gunfight in the movie. But you think of Top Gun, you think of him as Doc Holliday, you think of him as the Saint. The Saint wasn't a great movie. If you know who Simon Templar is, if you don't know who the Saint is. The Saint is like a lower class James Bond. I guess the best way to put it. Never as popular or as out there or as flashy as James Bond as a character, but also an enduring figure, Simon Templar as the Saint. And Val Kilmer was the Saint opposite Elizabeth Shue years and years ago. Not a great movie, like I said. Not bad, but not great. But Doc Holliday is how I'll remember him. I mean, you can remember him as Ice in Top Gun, the original, but where he had a very big role, and he was kind of the, guy who gave Tom Cruise all the trouble. But I thought the Doc Holliday was his best work, and it was really good. He played a great Doc Holliday, as a matter of fact. And he passes, unfortunately, at the age of 65. So we'll see you on Friday morning. We'll have plenty on the Final Four. We'll take some emails then and a bunch of other stuff. And remember, we are just days away. The good thing is you go from Monday night championship game, and we got a good championship game no matter what. And we deserve a couple of good games because let's be honest, unless you're one of these apologists for the tournament, and I'm sure not. It's been a bad tournament. It's been a boring tournament. Be the first to admit it. Has the tournament lost some of its charm? It might because of the NILs, because these teams are going to get stronger rather than weaker, and you're going to take the Cinderella out of the mix. Cinderella's not going to come to the ball very often. It's just not going to happen. That's going to be part of the way this works. I mean, it tests, I'm sure it tests guys' patience and their resolve. There's Izzo talking about how this was maybe the most special team in terms of tightness and culture that he ever had. And then he wakes up this morning and a couple of his top players are already in the portal. So, I mean, I wonder what he thinks about that. It's a different world. That's all there is to it. I thought Maryland made a good hire. Listen, Willa didn't handle Maryland right. I don't know when Villanova contacted him, and no one's going to ever know. And who cares? I mean, that's the way the game is played. Let's not act like it's not, okay? And let's not single out Willard and Villanova over this, because everybody goes after coaches they want. That's the way it works, okay? I mean, we all know that. And Maryland sort of swooped down, took somebody else's coach fast enough, getting Buzz Williams, who I think will be very good at Maryland. And Maryland's a good job. Nothing wrong with Maryland. I mean, Villanova is a great job. Maryland's a really good job too, though. It could be a very good basketball job. And Willard didn't handle it right because it just got out of control. It became too big a story, and it really wasn't fair to his kids. That was what was unfair. You wondered if it was in any way hurting his team. I don't think it did. His team got to the Sweet 16. They got beat, by a very good team. They also didn't have much of a bench to begin with. But there was a unsavory feel to the whole process with Willard. There's no question about it. But it hasn't been a great tournament. I mean, I'm sorry, it hasn't. It's been boring. And hopefully this weekend we get a couple of classics. We're set up for it, that's for sure. We got 4 good teams there, and 4 teams, any one of them can win. Duke deserves to be the favorite. I agree, they do. They're imposing. Cooper Flagg's great. He's still a freshman. And if I'm Houston, and with their defensive prowess, if I'm Kelvin Sampson, I'm going to be saying to my team, who wants to challenge? Who wants to take him on? Because if we take him on properly, not a lot of double teams, and just play him the right way with our defensive prowess, play him straight up the right way. I think we're the bigger player rather than a smaller player. That can change the entire feel of that game. Because in essence, they have really talented players. They got 4 really good players, but they live and they breathe through Cooper Flagg. There's no question. If you go after him and he has a rough game, Duke will have a rough game. We'll see you later.